Hey, I'm Follygon, and I'm here with 5 tips to become a working professional artist from zero. Immediately starting off with my first tip, which is have a plan. Of course, you can have a long-term career goal. Maybe you don't even have that, but you definitely need that long-term career goal. Not only that, but you need to break down that long-term goal into short-term achievable steps. For this, I recommend creating a timeline or schedule for yourself, and I also recommend overestimating on this kind of thing. When I first got into digital sculpting, I am a professional digital sculptor now, I gave myself a timeline of 2 years to go from nothing to having my first job. I immediately got to work doing freelance gigs as often as I could. I did not charge a lot of money for them because I was not very skilled at the time. But over that period of 2 years, I slowly worked my way up until one of the freelance gigs that I had ended up turning into a full-time job. I ended up achieving that in around a year in 10 months' time, so that was within my 2-year goal. But by having that timeline for myself, it allowed me to have clarity in my goal, as well as break that down into short-term projects, which we'll talk about more here very soon, so stick around. My second tip is to be specific with your goals. You should be defining clear, measurable objectives for your long and your short-term goals. The more specific you are, the better. This is helpful so that you know when you are successful and you know when you fail. If you have a goal that is simply get a job, well, you're not going to necessarily know these steps to get to that position. But the more specific you are, such as I want to be a concept artist specifically at Blizzard, you're going to have a lot more clarity on the steps necessary to reach that target. The other thing you need to be doing is set realistic targets for yourself. You should not be right out of the gate saying, I want to get a job at Disney. I've never drawn a day in my life. I want to be a Disney 2D animator, and I want to have that job next week. Well, I'm sorry to say it, but that's probably not going to happen unless you all of a sudden wake up, have a genie lamp, and you're able to wish for that, or maybe you're just a prodigy. I don't know. That's not going to be the case for most people. So you need to set realistic targets for yourself, and my recommendation for that is going to be projects. Projects are amazing short-term goals that you can easily measure and break down into actual points of focus and growth for yourself. Projects are just absolutely amazing for a number of reasons. Also, the fact that you get a finished piece at the end of that project. So I would do this for myself. Actually, I should say when I started, I did a daily challenge that ended up going for about 100 days where I created a digital sculpt every day for that. But after that was completed, I immediately got to work with projects. And I would spend maybe about a week on each project to kind of get some longer pieces rather than just daily things here and there. But that was really nice for giving myself something with a little more depth and having a little more focus in specific areas. With this project style of mini short-term goals, you need to be establishing deadlines to hold yourself accountable. So maybe that is a week per project, whatever that is for you. You can have a specific scope based on how difficult the project might be. If you are not really good at coming up with projects, you can also reach out to other artists for helpful advice in that area, or look at some other artworks from working professionals online to get a better idea of what you need to be aiming for. If you want to be a concept artist, for example, one of your mini projects could be to create a lineup of 5 characters in a week. That would give you a character drawing a day to kind of create those 5 characters, plus a couple extra days to work out any of the kinks along the way. So those are some great tips for working on short-term goals with projects, but let's move on to our third tip here, which is going to be super helpful for you. Research and understand your target. So I mentioned back on our first tip that you need to have a plan because of clarity. Well, this is a little more talk on clarity because if we don't know what bar we're trying to reach, it's kind of like playing high jump in the dark. You're not going to have much success. So you need to be studying the portfolios and the work of professionals in your desired field. And even more specifically, you need to be studying the artists that work at the companies that you want to work at. It sounds super obvious when I say it, but trust me, pretty much every person I've ever mentored does not follow this tip. So you need to be looking at those specific people to gain insights, not just into the industry, insights into the companies, but also into specific trends. So for example, if you want to work at Blizzard and they have a particular intellectual property that is up and coming or just released, you are going to be able to hit on that specific art style, get that in your portfolio, and help build interest in yourself. If you show that you have interest in them, that's going to help them have more interest in you. If it came down to two candidates, who do you think that they are going to hire? The person that shows up and says, oh yeah, I'm familiar with the stuff that you do? Or do you think they're going to hire or be more interested in the person that comes forward and says, oh yeah, I am familiar with what you do, and also I have things in that particular art style in my portfolio? That is going to be a big win for you. And also it really helps you figure out a lot more exactly where you want to go and what you want to do. Too many times I see artists not understand the exact requirements and expectations of potential employers. If you are going to go work for a company and your skill level is not at the quality of the other artists currently working there, what makes you think that they are going to want to hire you? You simply need to be able to create work around that level of ability. And the way you can do that is with my fourth tip, which is to be consistent. This is easily the most important thing that you can do as an artist and as a person, not just for your mental health, but also for your skill development. You need to be dedicating regular hours to your artistic practice. If you have a more sporadic schedule, you might want to implement something like the 1-minute rule, which if you are not familiar with, I released a video on just last week. I will link it in the top right corner of this video and down in the description if you want to go check it out and learn more about it. But it's super helpful for people who aren't able to put a ton of time necessarily in every single day at the exact same hour. But if you are someone that can do that, I highly recommend it, because one of the best things you can do for building a habit is to have a consistent time and location for practice. This is really helpful for your brain because it builds in a routine. When you wake up every morning, one of the first things you do, or at least I do, is brush my teeth. If I forget to brush my teeth, a few minutes later, my brain reminds me because it's something I do every single day at that time, and if I forget to do it, it's pretty easy for me to remember. So by having that routine, you might get to a time. For me, when I was starting, it was 6 p.m. When I got home from work, I was in that mindset and in my routine of, now it's time for me to go sit down at my desk and start working on some art and work towards my current project that I was working on, which built towards my larger career goal. Something that really helps with being consistent as well is to treat your artistic pursuits with the same dedication as a professional job. I find this one especially helpful myself, because having that mindset of this is a job, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a full-time job because you most likely don't have that kind of time on the side, but you could treat it as a part-time job, maybe a few hours a day throughout the weekday, whatever you want to do to allocate your time towards that. But that can be really helpful to keep yourself consistent by treating your pursuits like they are work, because eventually, one day, it will be. And my fifth tip, which actually isn't my last one, I have one more bonus tip here after this, so stick around, is to invest in yourself. There are two main ways you can do that, and those are acquiring high-quality tools and training. I don't know about you, but I always want to have the absolute best tool for the job. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on some new art tablet that just came out. It just means that you need to have a high quality tool that can help you complete your job in an effective and efficient manner. If you have a cheap $20 little 4-inch tablet that is really hard and cramped for you to work on and affects your posture and your mood, well, that is not going to be helpful towards your large and small-term goals of completing projects. It's going to make it really hard for you to do that. So instead, get something a little bigger, invest in yourself, get something that's ergonomic, make it comfortable for you to work, getting yourself to a place where you want to work with those tools. And then in terms of investing in training, I always see two encampments here where there are people that are completely all in on going to college, which I personally wouldn't recommend for artistic pursuits. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, I see people who say, I refuse to spend a single dime on artistic training. I believe that both of those are terrible options, and you need to aim for something a little more in the middle. The reason why I don't necessarily recommend college, unless it's something that you really want to do and are able to do, in that case, please go right ahead. But it is extremely expensive, and you can get that level of training, if not better, from an artistic professional like myself or many others online for a fraction of the cost. And you can get help specifically tailored towards you. The problem with people who go the completely free route, I refuse to spend a single dime on artistic training, are simply hindering their progress and potentially getting training from people who aren't necessarily giving the best advice. How many YouTube videos have you watched where by the time you got to the end of it, you went on to the next video or something else and you said to yourself, well, sure, that thumbnail got me to click and the title was a bit clickbaity or interesting, but I didn't really leave that video feeling like I learned anything or gained anything from it. This is all too common when it comes to free content. Not to say that there is not good stuff out there, there is plenty of good stuff, but it is amidst an ocean of garbage, so you gotta do a lot of digging. And if you want to invest in yourself, I recommend checking out my program, the Appeal Academy. This is where you can learn everything I know about digital sculpting. But like I said, there are plenty of other people out there offering great training, just like myself. Do your research, find someone that works for you, and invest in yourself. And a bonus tip for you, my last tip here before I leave you, is to be patient. This kind of work can take a long time. It's also very competitive. So please do not give up on yourself. I believe that you can do it because I have done it. And trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.